The David who had slain Goliath, the David who had become king over united Israel, a harp playing shepherd whose music could calm a mad king, was also a great warrior, had written 73 of the 150 poems in the book of Psalms. King David, who was so many things to so many people, is thought very highly of among the Jews to this day. But great men such as David are capable of making great mistakes too. And this is a story of the great sin of a great man. King David had 7 wives and at least that many girlfriends, called concubines at the time, which was no sin in the time and place in which he lived. His son Solomon would have 700 wives and 300 concubines, and whether it's 20 or 1,000, that was a lot of women to keep happy. But it was the right of kings to have as many wives as they pleased. Wives were considered property then, and that too was just business as usual in those days. King David woke up from a nap one day and was strolling around on the roof of his palace and saw a beautiful woman bathing on the rooftop below him. Well, it's already been established that this king had an eye for the ladies and decided right then and there that he must have this woman, this particular woman. And kings could have whatever caught their eye. And this woman, Bathsheba, well, she'd certainly done that. There were a couple of problems, however. Bathsheba was married. Adultery was adultery, king or not. And the other problem was who Bathsheba was married to. Now, there'd been a lot of speculation about why King David was still in his palace instead of being at battle with his men, but that's all it is, a speculation. Perhaps it's because he'd chosen a group of men to be warriors on his behalf and on behalf of the kingdom of Israel, about 30 of them, and they became known as David's mighty men. And one of them was Uriah the Hittite. Bathsheba was married to Uriah. So you see the problem? Uriah was away in the thick of battle. In his absence, King David had Bathsheba brought to the palace, and he slept with her. And later Bathsheba let the king know that she was pregnant. David then arranged to have Uriah brought back from the field to come home. Uriah, being a man of honor, didn't go to his own home and sleep with his wife as David had hoped. Uriah would not, as a matter of principle, sleep with Bathsheba while his men were in battle and away from their own wives. The king had hoped that when the child was born, people would assume that Bathsheba had given birth to Uriah's child. David had done a terrible thing, which he was trying to hide. A dishonorable act that was ruined, ironically, by the act of an honorable man, Uriah. That having not worked out, David arranged for the men around Uriah to withdraw, leaving Uriah to be killed in battle. That was Plan B. This was a complicated story full of a lot of moving parts, and I hope I conveyed it to you clearly enough to get the gist of what happened, because there's a part two. Now, King David had a personal advisor, a prophet, Nathan. It was the nature of prophets to give people bad news, so it fell to Nathan to tell David truths he didn't really want to hear. Mob bosses have consigliaries, presidents have chiefs of staff, and David had Nathan. We should all have a friend like that. Nathan came before the king with a story. There were 2 men in the same city, one rich, the other poor. The rich man had huge flocks of sheep. The poor man had only one ewe lamb, which he bought and raised. He brought it home with him. It grew up with him and his children as a member of the family. He ate off his plate, drank from his cup, and slept on his bed. It was like a daughter to him. And one day a traveler dropped by to see the rich man, and it was customary to prepare a meal for a visiting guest as an act of hospitality. But the rich man is too stingy to take an animal from his own herds, instead taking the poor man's lamb and used it to prepare a meal to set before his guest. And David had listened intently to the story, and when it ended, the king exploded with anger. As surely as God lives, the man who did this should be killed. He must repay for the lamb 4 times over for his crime and his lack of pity. The prophet Nathan looked David directly in the eye and said, "You are the man." I think King David probably understood at that point, but Nathan pressed on with the details of how good and gracious and merciful God had been to David, and how he trampled underfoot all that, and how shamefully he had acted with Bathsheba, and how he had betrayed Uriah, a man who trusted him. Now, this story is told in greater detail in 2 Kings chapter 11 and 12, and I think there's a great deal for us to learn from it. First, God expects us to repay kindness with kindness, mercy with mercy, honor for honor. The second thing, this is exactly what a parable is and what a parable is for. David could not see the awfulness of what he'd done until he was told a story that he thought was about someone else. But when he realized the story was really about him, well, then clarity set in. What he'd done, what he thought he'd gotten away with, was suddenly laid bare for the greed and cruelty that it was. And that is us too. We see the flaws in others much more clearly than we see our own. And lastly, we learn something about the Bible itself. This history of the Jews could have well been told without this incident, but it was included. We learn everything about that history, the good, the bad, the things that are a little of both. These writings are a window into another time and place, but at the same time, they may be a mirror that shows us who we truly are. So that was the story of David and Bathsheba and the parable of the Ewe Lamb. Next week, we look at another story for the life of Jesus, which we've come to call the woman taken in adultery. Until then, may we all be honorable and kind and merciful to those we meet.